Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. If you haven't been here before, my name is Debbie and I read a lot of books to the point where I think I'm reading about 4 books at the same time at the moment. Today's book is One of Us Is Next by Karen M. McManus. There we go, that is the front cover. Yeah, so this is book 2. The first book was One of Us Is Lying and this one is One of Us Is Next. It says, truth or dare, turned deadly, what would you choose? So, this is a very short blurb, so I'm just going to get straight in there. Welcome back to Bayview High. It's been a year since the events of One of Us Is Lying, but nothing has settled for the residents of Bayview. Not now someone has started playing a sinister game of truth or dare. Choose truth, you must reveal your darkest secret. Choose dare, well, that could be even more dangerous, even deadly. When the game takes an even darker turn, suddenly no one at Bayview High knows who to trust, but they need to find out who is behind the game before it's too late. This is in crime, thriller, detective, mystery, young adult fiction, and its target audience is 13 plus, and it's 308 pages. It felt a little bit more adult compared to the last one, which felt very high school. I mean, it's still set at Bayview, but it just felt like it didn't feel as cheesy, this one. The first one had very Americanized high school tropes in it, and this one just felt like the older sibling to One of Us Is Lying. But yeah, the main characters of this one, I mean, you've still got characters from the first book, but you've got Maeve, whose sister was Bronwyn, who was one of the original Bayview 4, and then you've got Phoebe and Knox and their families. I still found it kind of hard to follow at times because at the beginning of each chapter you have the name of the person narrating that thing, but then it's also done in the first person. So you really do need to pay attention at the beginning of each chapter to double check whose story you're on. But yeah, after the events of the first book, in this one, you've still got the kids coming to terms with what happened the year before, but you do have a new set of characters to focus on. Basically, it seems like somebody is trying to one-up Simon's gossip from the first book, and in this one it turns into a game of truth or dare done by text message. So, and it's all from an unknown number, it's all done from a burner phone, so nobody knows who's behind it, and it's basically a case of they go through saying truth or dare, and basically if anybody refuses to take part, then a big amount of gossip, a deep, dark secret about the person who has ignored it is going to make it out. So, I was at the point when I was just thinking, why didn't everybody just ignore it? But then after the first person's secret is revealed, people think it's easier just to play the game. In this case, it's a case of everybody just prefers to do the dare because in the truth side of it, they think that it's just going to be gossip related, and so even if you forfeit the game, it automatically goes to truth, at which point a truth will be outed. But yeah, it just felt a bit more grown up, this one, compared to the last one, because the last one was just felt very high school cheesy, and this one just didn't have as much cheese in it, which I kind of liked actually, because I mean, obviously I don't mind the cheese, I don't mind a bit of cheesy stuff. I mean, I love cheesy Christmas movies. But in this one it did feel like it had just grown up a little bit. The way that things are like called back to, especially towards the end, I thought was really clever. But yeah, you do get the idea that there's somebody being targeted, in particular through the game of truth or dare, but you're not completely sure who it is until somebody turns up dead. And it turns out it might have been related to the game, and they think it was a dare that went wrong. But at the same time, you also get information about the person who dies and their relationship to somebody else, and historical event regarding some of the characters. I think one of my main issues with reading these books is the fact that, because as I said, you do have to pay attention to figure out like whose voice is talking through the different chapters, because I felt like there wasn't any individual voices. Like there wasn't like a difference in the way that each chapter was told, so it was a case of more paying attention to the chapter titles and who was talking, because even though there was context in different chapters regarding like who was talking and references to family members and stuff and friends, yeah, I just felt like I was having to like revert back, because I did it in the first book as well. I kept having to check the beginning of the chapter to double check who was talking, because each character, even though it was done in the first person, there wasn't enough of a change between the characters to really identify who it was. That's my only real issue with these books, the fact that it's just a little bit hard to follow based on the different chapters. Even though you do have references to like the Bayview 4 of the main characters of the last one, it kind of takes it down to the siblings, the younger siblings of the original ones. So while there are references in the first book to younger siblings, this one puts the siblings at the forefront, and in a way you see the younger siblings looking to the older siblings and how to handle stuff when it all comes out, because at the beginning of the book you find out that somebody has died but you don't know who, and you kind of go into a flashback to find out like what led up to the event where somebody died, and you're trying to work out who it is. So it's kind of trying to piece it all together, because I'll admit at the end there was a big twist which as soon as I saw it, it was just like, oh, because I'll admit there's a bit of a spelling bee at the beginning. Stay with me here, where there's mentioning of a word which is spelt wrong because they're referring to, is it a restaurant or a shop in America? I'm not going to say what the word is, and they're just like, no, you're thinking of this when you're actually thinking of this word, and basically it's a bit of a mix-up on the spelling because the two words are pronounced pretty much the same, but they're two separate words, and yeah. Think along the lines of like there and there, you're and your type thing, but it's not one of those words. How to sort this out? At the end there's a reference to that spelling bee when you realise that the word that was talked about at the beginning of the book comes back at the end, and you're just like, oh no, because as soon as you see the word you're just like, shit. You're like, no, that means that the person involved in the spelling bee was involved here. I'll let you read it to understand that, but if you have read it, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It's literally done in like the final page of the book, where it just completely turns everything on you. I've read books before where there's a twist like in the final line of the book, and this is kind of like that, just when you think you know what's happened. But I must admit though, even as it was starting to wrap up, I was just like, but that doesn't explain everything, and then it explained it all in that last page or two, and it comes back and saying, well, but what about this now? You know, we've come to the conclusion about this conversation that's happened and where we thought it ended, and then they're just like, but it seemed like this conversation didn't actually end, despite one of the people involved saying it did end, and then you find out that somebody else was involved, and it's all explained to you just with the misspelling of this word and that final twist on you right at the end. Ugh. I can see this going on again. I can imagine another book happening, but the fact is, it's that whole thing of, it's not all wrapped up in a bow. You are told in that final page that there was somebody else involved, and that only like two of the characters know. Yeah, the person involved is basically trying to one-up Simon, because obviously what happened in the first book with Simon trying to frame his classmates. I'm being careful just in case there's anybody here who hasn't read the first book, but it had to do with a boy called Simon dying in detention, and everybody else in detention become targets, and you find out that Simon may have had more influence over what happened in the room than we originally thought. But yeah, in this case you've got the character trying to one-up Simon and saying, you know, Simon thought he was doing something brilliant, but he was caught out. People figured it out. And in this case, the person trying to kind of manipulate everybody through this truth or dare game, this person wants to be infamous, and they kind of are infamous, but then they're also kind of not infamous by the end of the book. After that, everything seems to get drawn to that final line when you find out that there was somebody else involved that nobody realised. But it does all come back to a family secret. As I said, it involves the Bayview 4 and their siblings. Well, one of those families has a bit of a family secret. To call it a family secret is a bit weird, but it's the best way to describe it. They have a bit of a family secret, and another family knows what the secret is, but the people who are affected by it, they know something's happened, but they don't know the full story, and that comes out within the pages of the book. Yeah, it's getting to the centre of that secret that kind of opens up what is happening within this Truth or Dare game. Does that make any sense at all? Any sense? No. One of Us is Next by Karen M. McManus. I feel like that was a bit of a hodgepodge of a explanation of this book, because you've got the massive twist of the last book and then you've got so many things happening in this one. It's still a great mystery. I'd still put it as a really, really good one that kept me on my toes and trying to figure out what the hell was going to happen next. Yeah, One of Us is Next by Karen M. McManus, and that is the front cover of the book, and I read it on BorrowBox, which, as I just smacked my iPad into here, I read it on BorrowBox, which is a app connected to my local library. So if you like reading books for free, find out if there's a BorrowBox or something similar connected to your library, and you can read books for free, like I do, because book lovers dream. Book lovers dream. Anyway, so thank you so much for watching. I hope that didn't just confuse the hell out of you, but if you haven't read the book, it might have just done anyway. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not already, and I will see you soon for another video. Bye!